talk because mental health is important. Let's welcome our guest, Andreen.
Hello.
Okay, Andreen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Andreen Voice. That's the first time I've said
She's
that out
a
loud.
married woman. Huh?
That's actually the first time I said that out loud. But yes, apart from that, I'm a friend of Simone's.
Mm-hmm.
I am also a mental health enthusiast, and I guess, unfortunately, a victim.
A victim.
Yeah, I am a jazz vocalist. I am a sister, a friend. I'm a lot of things. I am a lot of things, yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have our icebreaker question. What is the most interesting place that you've ever visited? Or for you, we could say lived because you're a world traveler.
That's not wrong. I will say it's between Hong Kong or Bangkok.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird because I asked myself this question a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where would I prefer? But it doesn't have to be a country. I'd say place being the palace at Bangkok. What's the name of it? I don't know.
I
What I'm
have
asking
no
you.
idea. I've never been to Bangkok.
But I think it's the Grand Palace in Bangkok.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Thailand is a Buddhist country, and I'm a Christian, and I have no knowledge or exposure of Buddhism. But it's weird because I visited the area that the palace was in. It's called Sanam Luang. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it's weird. I didn't know what it was at the time. I just went there accidentally because I got lost, and it's weird. I just felt this like peace and just a serenity that I still cannot explain to this day. And I didn't know why, but I liked it. And then when I went back to intentionally visit the Grand Palace and some other sites, then I realized what it was. So and that feeling became just even more overwhelming as I visited the palace. And it was just interesting because I have, again, no knowledge, no experience in Buddhism, but I felt something. I felt something, and I think that's why that experience stuck with me, and that's why it's the most interesting place. Yeah, the architecture is fantastic. By the way, this is fantastic. Yeah.
So clearly, you would go back to Bangkok.
I would. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about not becoming Buddhist, but exploring it a little bit more?
Not really.
You could become Buddhist if you really wanted to, but
yeah. I think I'd like to learn things. So I wouldn't mind just learning it, simply, just to know. But I don't think I have any interest in switching religion at all. Yeah.
Okay. So, are you ready to go into our topic? All right. So we're talking about transitions today, life transitions, and you just recently went through a really big life transition of getting married.
Still going, actually.
Yes.
It's weird. It's weird, and it's the part of marriage that nobody talks about. I wasn't expecting. Like, it's a very odd transition. Like, my therapist described it as trauma. I don't know if I would use that word, but it's definitely a change. Because I know who Andreen McLean is. I've been her for 28 years, almost 20, and I've come to know her, to learn her, and I am quite comfortable with who she is. But I don't know who Andreen Voice is. I'm just figuring that out. And wife is one of those words that is so loaded. Like, everybody has different expectations, and it's a change in how I see myself, how I see my husband, a change in expectations, a change in how I want to put myself out into the world. It's unexpected, and it wasn't expected because we were living together before we got married. So I just figured it would just be, more or less the same thing, because we were married, I guess, for all intents and purposes. Like, our finances were joint, so, but that I wasn't expecting. Yeah.
Let's backtrack a little bit and talk about how you got together, how it started, how your relationship began.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We got Saturday in the Juve party. He was dancing with a friend of mine, and we just have a thing. We always look out for each other when we're partying. And
so
I didn't know him.
First?
No, him and me and Pete. No, we didn't know each other.
Okay.
No, but he was dancing with a friend of mine.
And so you and the friend,
yeah,
have a thing where you look out for each other.
Yeah, especially when we're drunk and in an environment where things can go left fast. So I walked up to her. She was dancing with him, and I walked up to her. And I was like, "Are you okay?" She was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then he was like, "Oh, I want to dance with your friend, you and me." And then that's how we met. Yeah. Long story short,
that's how y'all met. Okay, what happened after that?
That was Sunday morning, like at 7, because the party was about to end, and I had to work that same evening, which I will never do again. I was so out of it. I was so drunk. My voice was gone. I was barely sober by the time I had to make it to work. And I told him I was singing later. Like, he took my number and we talked, and I was like, "Hey, I have a gig later." Just to let him know. And he actually showed up, which for me was a big thing because I didn't even want to go to work myself. So for him to get out of bed just to see me, it was
the first thing from the beginning.
Okay, I see you. And yeah, from then we talked. Our relationship was, I hope my mother doesn't see this. Nobody that's related to me. Our relationship was physical before it went into anything else. I didn't take him seriously. You've met him. He's red skin with long curly hair. He was working as a mixologist at the time. I'm like, he does not want anything serious at all. And I believed that for quite some time until he proved me wrong. So I just expected it to be, we meet a couple times and then that's that. But he showed me differently. Yeah, we were in the same country for 2 weeks, and then I had to leave for 2.5 weeks. This is around Christmas time, New Year's, and we still kept in contact, which was surprising to me because I was like, this is a fantastic opportunity for you to say, okay, bye. And I would not have held it against him at all.
How was long distance? You don't have to get into details.
That's fine. It was, that time or just all of it?
The first time.
I surprisingly missed him more than I expected to. Yeah. But it was harder for him, I think, because it's always harder for the people that stay. But I was in a new country, working a new job, so it was exciting for me. But at the same time, I didn't really miss him.
Do you feel like if it limited you in any way?
What,
going out, meeting people?
No, not at that time. Not at that time. So yeah.
You think you were ready for a committed relationship, so your mind wasn't on meeting new people, or were you still kind of like, oh, I'm not really taking you seriously, so I'm open to meeting somebody?
That's actually quite interesting because I think both those things are correct. Like, on a deeper level, I knew I wasn't ready. Sorry, not I wasn't ready. I knew that I was committed. Even though we had only met for 2 weeks at a time, because I've always wanted, like, you know me, I've always wanted to, be a mother, be a wife. So I think that on a deeper level, yes, but surface level with him, I would say I didn't think that at the time because we don't even know each other for a very short time, and I was not taking him seriously at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the communication that was happening, how would you say that was?
It was constant. Like,
every day. Talked every day.
Every day. The Wi-Fi was terrible where I was, and I would like try to find different places around the house that we were staying, so that we could communicate. And I talked to him more than I talked to anybody else. Yeah.
How do you think intimacy went? Because I know that a lot of people start relationships like when they're younger, and then sometimes they go off to university, and as soon as they have that distance and the intimacy isn't a physical touch anymore, because some people's love languages are physical touch, like they struggle a lot more.
Mm.
What do you think? Was it hard for you? Were you able to find intimacy?
Um, yes and no. Well, I can't speak for him. I can speak for me.
Mhm.
It wasn't really a problem for the 2 weeks I was away.
Mhm.
But then when I came back, we were again in the same country for a month, and then I was away for 3 months. For me, that was very difficult. Um, because physical touch is my primary love language.
Mhm.
And it was hard not because I didn't have him, but because I did not have friends really around me. So something as simple as a hug. When I was in Hong Kong, it was different because I was able to make so many friendships in Hong Kong, and we'd hug, like we go out, like I had that interaction. But Thailand was hard. It really, really was hard, and I really wanted to come home. I enjoyed it, but 3 months is a long time to be without something like that.
How was it on just a personal level? Not even talking about relationships, like making friends in Thailand and being there, getting immersed in the culture for 3 months.
Mm-hmm. It was exciting for the first maybe like month and a half because everything is new, so I'm experiencing the novelty of it all. But it became harder, one, because I got sick out there, and that's when it was hardest for me because I was like, oh well, it would be nice to have somebody. No, but I think that was the only hard part of it, just navigating the loneliness sometimes, because you're experiencing a lot of things for the first time, and coming on to the last couple of weeks, I was like, this has been nice, but it would be even nicer if I had somebody to experience it with, to share it with, because I kind of just got kind of tired calling everybody and showing them what was happening around me, versus just having somebody there to experience it. So that part got difficult coming on to the end.
Yeah. So do you think that you would ever go to another country where you don't know anyone ever again and like live there?
By myself? I don't know. Not because I'm afraid to. I'm not afraid of not like jumping into a new culture and navigating it, but because I do like that stuff. But I have, even separate and apart from Pete and just traveling like on my job, I have been doing that, just navigating life a lot by myself. And for the time I was a teenager, I've had to navigate some pretty dark situations by myself, unfortunately. And I'm kind of tired of having to do life by myself. There've been times where it's been hard, even just simple things like when I had my apartment and I was single. Like, life is so hard for one person to do it themselves. It's just the small things. Like, there's always something to do. It's mentally exhausting because there's always something to account for. Always, like, I have to prep my own meals. And I have pets. I'm running a business. I was working full time, and I had an apartment that I was responsible for. It was a lot. It was a lot, and it's the small little things that just pile up, and it's like the straw. It's like a straw that can break a camel's back.
What do you think your mental health was like during that time?
It was not the worst that it's ever been, but it was hard. It was hard, and not just because I was single for the majority of that time, because you know how my friendships tend to go. So it was quite lonely sometimes, and I was living in St. Philip, which is kind of far from everybody.
Yes, very far.
Quite. Yeah, not that I live anywhere. I'm like, I don't know if I will go back, but yeah. So, but apart from the instability of relationships, I got burnt out. I got burnt out, which is what led me to another big transition in my life, leaving my job. For a long time, I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted to go to university, get my bachelor's in arts, have that, do some exams, be an associate by 25, and then be a fellow by, well, I didn't have an age on a fellow, but I just knew I wanted to be an associate by 25. I'm still not an associate. I stopped. And I stopped because I did enjoy my job. I do enjoy actuarial science. I enjoy math. And then we transitioned to completely work from home. I realized that a lot of why I liked my job was the environment I was working in. And not only did that change physically, but it changed virtually as well, because a lot of the team was rearranged and I wasn't reporting to my manager anymore. Um, I was working with different persons, and that environment I didn't like. So, I mean, with everything in the midst of a pandemic and such, I left my corporate job in April 2022, so just about 2 years ago. And that was a huge transition. For the first time in my life, I had no plan. I did not know what my next step was. I knew where I wanted to go, but I didn't know how to go there. I wanted to be an entertainer. I've always loved singing, and I've always loved entertaining, but it became a hobby. It became something I do if an opportunity arises, if I find the time for it. It was never what was at the forefront. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you have to give yourself grace to, just navigate different things and just experience different things you like. So that's fine. There's always been there, but never a priority. But with leaving my corporate job, I don't know why I thought in the midst of a pandemic it was the best time to do that and to try to get into entertainment, which was an industry that was, on a decline in that context as well. But it was hard for me. I think this is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, because not only did I not have a plan, but I've always been a person who needed a plan. Like, there are people who can just
Be spontaneous.
That's never been me. I have always have to have my plan written on a paper, and I check boxes and I go step by step. It's always been me. Very chronological. And that transition was hard for me, but I think I'm better for it now, because I'm not as rigid as I was. Like, everything had to be by the book and it had to go like this. And now I am thankful that I had to go to that, because that's just not how life goes. And you have to be flexible. You have to be able to navigate uncertainty and changes, because those two things are, well, that one thing is inevitable. But that was hard because I didn't know what to do. And I ended up going to BCC, and that's been one of the best decisions I've made, because that's how I started traveling and making the connections and getting the jobs. So that works out. That works out.
How do you think it went? Or I should say, do you think that you went from stability to instability? Or do you think your stability is still there, it's just different?
Now or then?
We could talk about the transition. So when it first happened, and no.
Definitely went from from stability to instability. I mean, just alone having a side income every month and knowing, like, getting up and knowing exactly what to do, because I've not been diagnosed with ADHD, but it would explain a lot of things. So, just having a schedule and a plan really helps to make me feel centered and make me feel comfortable, and, well, not comfortable, but capable to do things. Like, it's the smallest things that could change my day, and what can completely destabilize me. Like, there are times when I have a plan and somebody would say, okay, we can go at this time instead of this time, or we're not going to do this, and I literally have to just sit on my bed to just, like, readjust. It's annoying. So then, for sure, I went from stability to instability. I don't think I've really regained stability as I would like it, because everything just keeps changing all the time. And from the time I get comfortable or get accustomed to something, it's something else. Sure, traveling is nice, but I'm traveling for a long time. And the entire of all of 2023 was unstable. I enjoyed it, but it was unstable. It was unstable. I'm in a country for 3 months, and I'm back for 3 months, and I'm out, and then I'm back. 2024. Right. I'm just trying to get my timelines right. We're in the middle of 2024 now, and it's still changing, because even when I came back, I was between my parents' house, because I also moved out, because I was like, I'm traveling all the time. We're just paying rent and wasting money. I also moved out. And then it was between my parents' house and Pete's house. So that again is unstable. And now I'm adjusting to it. Then it was adjusting to living with him. And now, while that is constant, now I'm adjusting to being married. And there's some other things that happen in there. Like life has just been throwing things, and I've just been having to catch them. So I don't think that I am as stable as I would like, but I'm working on it.
Mentioned your parents moving back in with your parents after living in an apartment by yourself. I know that a lot of people in their 20s, 30s have had to do that because of COVID. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know it really messed with some people's mental health to feel like if they were independent and then feel like if they went back and it was completely different.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Just the thought of it made me feel like that for sure. But that's why I didn't have to, because I moved out right before I went to Hong Kong with the expectation to come back there. But then Pete had asked me to move in with him just as I came back, so I was able to just escape it just like that. But I didn't want to, not because of the money, because it's just that I was in and out all the time, and then I had the cats as well. So it was hard because I would have to have like somebody stay at the apartment for 3 months just to take care of them. By somebody, I mean my brother. Yeah, so I was like, let's just go back. But I mean, I moved out for a reason, and that reason still stood.
Yeah.
And I did not want to go back simply because of that. And
some people can't get out of that though. It's like financially they have to go back.
Fair enough.
So the reason stands as to why they left, but then they're like, well, it's either homelessness or living with my parents, and then they go through the struggle of, I'm not a child, but you're treating me like a child because the last time I was here, I was a child, and now that transition, that life transition of your parents getting to see you as an adult and them having to respect you, because we all know that Caribbean parents and their children respect is like, I don't need to respect you. You're my child. What do you mean? And it's just like, that's not how that works. You do need to respect me because I'm an adult, no. And them having rules for their home, but then also some people being like, well, I'm an adult, so it's you can't really tell me what to do now.
I can tell you when that happened. When I did my bachelor's in Jamaica, and I was kind of on my own. I was living on hall. Obviously, my father was still financially responsible for me. But when I left UV, so I mean, there's that element just being on your own for 3 years. And then even after that, I was living on my own and working for 2 years in my own apartment, so in my eyes, I'm a grown woman. And then when I decided to come back to Barbados, I was living with my parents, and I just could not get accustomed to the dynamic, because I'm like, well, who do you think was making all these decisions for me when I was on my own? So that definitely was an adjustment. And it was hard because at that time I was younger. I was 23, 24. Grown woman in my eyes, but still, to my parents, a child. And it was hard. I don't think we ever worked it out because I ended up moving out.
Fair enough. I feel like you are grown, more grown than you were when you left, because you've experienced new things. You've had to deal with things by yourself, because when I moved to Canada, even just for a couple months, just to do a part of school that I had to do there, it was just like, when I came back, the freedom that I felt while I was over there, I didn't have to call my mom. I didn't have to tell her where I was going to be. In fact, when I did call her while I was overseas, she was just like, why are you telling me this information? But then when you come home, it's like, are you coming home?
Yeah.
Are you going to do this? Do you need the car for this? And it's like a back and forth. And it just felt like I had so much freedom.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I am suffocating.
Yep.
Inside of their house, because it's just like, oh, you're a child and you're living under my roof and these are my rules, and if you leave a dish in the sink, you have to clean it my
Yep.
way and all
Yep.
of this.
And on my time.
And it's
That
just
was
like,
always my thing on my time. And I'm like, oh, that was always my problem.
and then it's like, when I was living on my own,
Right.
I didn't have to do all of this.
Right.
I could wash the dishes when I wanted to wash the dishes.
Right.
I could eat when I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't getting rodents like, oh, you're screaming at me that I'm going to get rodents all the time and all of this. Like, I was living. I was functioning. Yes.
I was self-sufficient.
Yes.
Yeah.
Financially, you were helping me because I needed that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was being independent to some degree. And then I traveled far because Canada is Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have to go places, it's not a simple 20-minute, 10-minute
Mm-hmm.
bus ride. Like, you're traveling far. So it's like, I did all that navigating by myself. And then I came back. And just because I'm in my early 20s, you're like, no, you know nothing. And in hindsight, looking back on it, I knew nothing. I did. I did know nothing.
We never know anything.
But at the same time, I could still say I was independent
Mm-hmm.
when I was over there. I was taking care of myself. I didn't get kidnapped. I didn't get assaulted.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happened to me.
I was healthy.
But
I ate right.
yeah.
You know, nothing happened to me. Like,
exactly. And even for those people who some things did happen to,
Mhm.
unfortunately, I'd still say you friggin' survived. You survived. You went there and you
Mhm.
came back home. You're good.
And you did what you needed to get done.
Exactly.
There we go.
So it's just like, then you have that dynamic and life transition that a lot of people go through.
Mhm.
And then it's like, that's where I guess the saying of, were you ever a child? Do you even understand? I feel like if y'all have never gone through this period of time,
Mhm.
and then they're like, yes, I was a child once. I know what children are doing. It's just like that push and pull from both sides of, you don't understand me. But we understand looking back the things that we would have changed. And then in that period of time, it was like, I need to spread my wings.
Mhm.
So having that dynamic and having to figure out eventually when you get tired of it, both sides get tired of it, kind of change of rules, change of how you communicate with each other, because they're no longer talking to a child legally. And
Do they know that though?
they have to kind of adjust. And most parents hate to hear that because
Mhm.
they're losing their baby. So we also have to keep that in mind. But having communication, like, that's one of the things I could say that helped me and my mom.
Mhm.
Having communication and saying, okay, yes, I'm an adult here. I'm no longer a child here. Even though this is your house, I will respect your rules, but I have to have my sort of independence to establish who I am,
Mhm.
to find my identity,
Right.
to be who I am. Because this transition, you can't control. You could control when I was younger, you could stop me from falling off of the bridge.
Mhm.
But right now, I have to see if me going on the edge is gonna make me fall off of it or not. Like, if you get the analogy, like, I need the time to adjust. And sometimes with life transitions, we don't give ourselves the time to adjust. We kind of just go boop, 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 boop,
Yeah.
boop, boop,
Yeah.
and struggle, and then we burn out, like you said earlier, and then we just go, what the hell am I doing? How am I, like, what's going on? But you managed to escape the parent part of that, and then
Not quite.
you moved in with Pete. How was that transition? So moving from independence to not even moving back in with people that you know, like your parents,
Mhm.
but somebody completely new.
I love my husband. Let's just start by saying that.
Yes.
I do. But, and I've known for quite some time that I am very particular about how I want certain things. And these things just make sense to me.
Mhm.
Like, for example, something as simple as when we wash the dishes, we're going to use hot water and we're going to wash the cleanest things first.
Mhm.
That just makes sense to me. But he's like, clean is clean. I wanted to wash everything, regardless of the order that they're washed in. They're all clean. And that makes sense. So it's just the small things, like the big things we've always agreed on, but it's the small things that you do not anticipate, like difference of how to wash dishes or something as simple as having the caps, because we have 3 cats together, having the caps on a routine. It's the smallest things that seem, well, I wouldn't say that seems so insignificant, because I've learned recently that even if it's a small disagreement, it means something has shifted. And it's about understanding what has shifted and why it has shifted. So it's not to dismiss something small, but it's just the small things that you really, really need to adjust to. And it's quite an adjustment that takes a mountain of communication. A mountain of communication. But as I said, we agree on the big things, and that's most important. Because if you disagree on the big things, that's problematic. But it's been an adjustment. It's been an adjustment, and it's been fun too. It's been fun, getting to do things together and not have to worry about him coming away with this info or me coming all the way to Warrens, or not having to move around persons that are living with him, because his mom was living with him before. So just having that freedom, and we're able to start a life together, and that's been quite fun. That part has been fun. Yeah.
Okay, I can ask a borderline nosy question. Did you guys move into his house, or did you get somewhere new?
His house.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that transition feel, specifically moving from your space into his space? Do you feel like if you were able to have your own space in the house and have it as this is our house, and not like I'm staying at your house for a couple of weeks type of vibe?
It took maybe about 2 months, because his mom was living with him, and I would stay over there for like a couple days at a time. And even though his mom and I get along quite well, it's still her house. I mean, she's the woman. Like, things do her way, and women have a very specific way of doing things. I know, because my mother is one of those women. I'm one of those women, and that's just women generally. So I had to, out of respect for her, do things her way. And because I was doing that for quite some time, even when it was just us two, I kind of felt like that's just the way it was supposed to be done. And I think maybe 2 weeks in, we just made a change, and we just redecorated, rearranged, and then that helped me to feel more comfortable and just even like connected to the house, feeling like it's mine. And I think after maybe about, I said 2 weeks, this is not so long. Yeah, maybe about a month after, it felt like my space. And that's because I made it my space. Yeah.
Yeah, you felt like if he was accepting of giving you space?
Yeah.
Because I know some people feel like, oh, well, yeah, I want you to move in and I want you to be a part of my life, but then you get like a kind of pushback when they start to really realize the realness of it, when people actually like move in, which actually brings me to the wedding and it being that transition and moving from the comfortability of I could break up with you at any point in time and I could leave you and I could put up with your crap, to this is it.
All right, so first question. What's the first question? Yeah?
Push back.
Right. No, because it took a while of him saying, okay, this is our house, this is our house, this is our house, for me to actually start to believe him and feel like it. Not because of him, but just because of, everything just described. So I never got to push back. He was quite accepting of pretty much any and every change I made. Yeah. And what helped too is that we have separate bedrooms. So we sleep together, but I have my own space. I actually decorated it kind of similar to how my bedroom was when I was in my apartment, which helped as well. And then he has his space, which is fine because he has his games and his such. And I'm like, I don't want to see that all the time.
Do you think that's necessary for a marriage?
Space?
Separate rooms?
Not necessarily separate rooms, but separate space. Somewhere that you can feel like yourself. That could be a particular part in the house, like some part in the living room, or maybe just like the patio, but some space that
to ease the transition, make it feel like you have your safe zone, I have my safe zone. It's not like we're running off and going somewhere else, but somewhere we can just be ourselves and not be ours.
That's quite necessary, especially for the start of the marriage, which goes into the other question that you asked. again, you know me.
Mhm.
I can not easily, but easier than most, pick up and say, no, it is, and I gone, and I gone. So that has been it has been something.
Mhm.
Even before we were married, when we were engaged, um, I wasn't scared because I always knew we were going to be all right. But as you said, the reality of like, this is my husband. Like for as long as I have imagined, like as long as I've understood what a wedding is and a marriage is, like I wanted a husband, and this person that I'm looking at is him, and it's reconciling all those expectations and to what I have in front of me, and not necessarily being scared, but realizing that this is it. So it is nerve wracking, but getting lost in the answer. I'm not going back to your question. Um, but yeah, at some point it was like, not at some point it was like I can't leave, but I just had to get not okay with the fact that I couldn't leave, but I had to figure out a way to resolve differences and arguments that was healthy for us and healthy for me. Because I could always do what I want and get the healthy for me part, but is the healthy for us? And it was not a matter of, sure, I can leave, but then if I leave, I still want to be married. So I mean, what am I running from and what am I running to? So it was just about not necessarily realizing, but having to do some introspection and having some introspection and being honest with myself and say, look, you want this. You want this, you want him. You want this marriage, you want the life that y'all envision for yourselves. And here's what you need to do in order to make sure, not just one, that you have it, but to make sure that it's healthy. And yeah, it's been a transition in and of itself, but again, I'm better for it.
Okay. And since your wedding, how would you say that your life transition has been going? Like mental health wise, where have you been? Or where have you all been?
Since we've been married, it's been fun. It's been fun. We've had and still continue to have a lot of fun moments. But it's also been an adjustment because sure, he still is the same person that I dated, same person I was engaged to. But he's a husband, a spouse, and again, just like wife, that word is loaded. And I've had certain, not have had, I have certain expectations of a husband. I didn't realize that were exclusive to a husband. I figured what I expected all along was what I would expect of a husband, but it seems to be different now, and I wasn't expecting that. So it's about one communicating those things to him, and it's also new for him too because for him it's like that's not those
That's
aren't
not
that's
who
not
you were.
exactly, and that's not what he expected of me, and that's not what I prepared myself for. And in the same way, well, I can't speak for him, but in the same way for me, like I have expectations of myself now that I didn't expect that I would have. Um, so that part has been the biggest and still continues to be the biggest adjustment. And yeah, that's how it's been so far. It's been a fun adjustment.
Right. Um, what advice would you give to someone who's going through a similar transition as you are?
So marriage, take your time. Take your time. Um, People told me this and I didn't listen to them. Because it was like, I know what I'm expecting, you know what it is, you know? But take your time. There are couples counseling, please. And not just going for the sake of going to say that you went, but there are a lot of questions that you will not think about unless they're posed to you by somebody who is a complete third party. Um, Something as simple like if this person cannot give you children, will you still be with them? I mean, that's something like, you're just going to marriage. Like, if the two of you expect that, well, if the two of you agree that y'all are having kids, you would expect that that's just going to happen. But things happen. Things happen. And so just something as simple as that, like, would you still want to be with this person? Not if you would still be with this person, but would you still want to be with this person? So it's just questions like that that need to be answered before getting married, and enjoy your engagement. Like, the engagement period is the shortest part of any relationship, and it can get very overwhelmed and overshadowed by a lot of the wedding planning and such. But enjoy your engagement. We had a very short engagement that I intended to enjoy, but I let my mother influence me, and then the wedding started to stress me out. So unfortunately, that period for me has gone, and I'm not going to get to enjoy it. But enjoy your engagement. Yeah, those two things.
Same question, but instead of relationship focused, more on the career path, personal path.
Stability is important, and life is unkind sometimes, and it will not always give you whatever you need. It will not give you stability. You have to create it for yourself. For me, well, like I said, I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but I'm pretty sure I have it. It would make sense. I have had to curate stability for myself. So it's as simple as I have to shower and do my skincare routine, all 7 steps of it before I go to bed. That keeps me centered. Something as simple as my cats have 3 meals a day: 7 a.m., 1 p.m., and then 7 p.m. I mean, that's good for them too, but it's good for me because those small little things keep you grounded. So if life does not give you what you need, you have to kind of create it for yourself, because at the end of the day, you're responsible for you. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching. Like and share. It's been fun.